This news is funded by viewers like you. Please support our work at democracynow.org/give. Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Health officials in Gaza say Israel's attacked the Al-Aqsa and the Kamal Adwan hospitals in northern Gaza while forcing wounded and sick patients to leave the Indonesian hospital in the latest assaults on Gaza's devastated health system. Israeli artillery shelled the third floor of the Al-Aqsa hospital, while Israel detonated remote-controlled explosives just outside Kamal Adwan, which is barely functioning after repeated Israeli attacks. This is Dr. Hussam Abu Safia, director of Kamal Adwan, speaking on Al Jazeera.
Just now, one of the explosives planted by the Israeli army detonated. It caused a shockwave that shattered the hospital doors and windows on the west side. It also injured some of the patients, and the very few medical staff left at the hospital. Roughly 20 people were hurt. A second, stronger explosion followed. It caused massive damage to the hospital's west wing, and more patients were injured. The entire west wing's doors and windows were all smashed, and the false ceiling collapsed.
At the United Nations, officials decried Israel's attacks on Gaza's health system.
The Director General of the World Health Organization said that the reports of bombardment near Kamal Adwan Hospital and orders to evacuate the hospital are deeply worrisome, adding that the hospital has been in the middle of fighting for too long and the lives of patients are at risk. OCHA reiterates that civilians and civilian infrastructure, including hospitals, must be protected.
In other news from Gaza, an Israeli drone strike Sunday targeted an aid convoy in Deir al-Balah, killing 4 security guards. This comes as Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said Monday there has been, quote, some progress in talks over a ceasefire and hostage deal. In the occupied West Bank, Israeli forces have reportedly abducted about 100 Palestinians in raids over the past day. This comes as Palestinian Authority forces are clashing again with Palestinian militants in the Jenin refugee camp. The Israeli newspaper Haaretz reports Palestinian police have been firing rocket-propelled grenades at armed Palestinian fighters in Jenin, where Palestinian police killed a 17-year-old on Monday. Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz has publicly confirmed for the first time that Israel was behind the assassination of Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran in July. Katz made the comment as he threatened to target the heads of the Houthi movement in Yemen.
We will damage its strategic infrastructure, and we will behead its leaders, just as we did to Haniyeh, Sinwar, and Nasrallah, in Tehran, Gaza, and Lebanon. We will do it in Hodeidah and Sana'a. Whoever will raise his hand to Israel, his hand will be severed. The IDF's long arm will harm him and will settle the score.
In recent days, the United States and Israel have both bombed targets in Yemen, while Houthi forces fired a rocket at Tel Aviv that injured 16 people. Greenland is not for sale. That's the message from Greenland's prime minister after President-elect Donald Trump said it's, quote, an absolute necessity, unquote, for the United States to own and control Greenland, which is legally part of Denmark. Greenland's prime minister said, quote, our country's sovereignty and independence are not negotiable. Greenland is ours. We are not for sale and will never be for sale. We must not lose our long struggle for freedom, he said. On Sunday, Trump also threatened to take back the Panama Canal. In news from Latin America, lawmakers in El Salvador have voted to overturn a national ban on mineral mining that had been in place since 2017. El Salvador's president, Nayib Bukele, has pushed for the mining of gold and other minerals to resume despite protests by environmentalists who warn it could lead to increased water and soil contamination. In Havana, Cuba, a massive protest was held outside the U.S. Embassy Friday to denounce U.S. sanctions, which have been in place since 1962. Former Cuban President Raul Castro, who's now 93, took part in the protest. He said the U.S. sanctions had made 2024 one of the most difficult years for Cuba. Other Cubans taking part in the protest said they fear Donald Trump will make life even harder for Cubans.
We are here just as we were 20 years ago with our Commander-in-Chief Fidel Castro at the front to condemn the genocidal blockade that our people have suffered for more than 66 years, and also the inclusion of Cuba on the list of terrorist states. We are not a terrorist state. The coming of President Trump next January also foresees extreme measures against Cuba, and that is why we are here, to condemn any coercive act against the people of Cuba.
The House Ethics Committee released its investigation Monday into former Republican Congressman Matt Gaetz, who Trump had picked to be his attorney general before the Florida politician withdrew from consideration. The report found Gaetz had paid tens of thousands of dollars for sex and drugs while in office. The report also found Gaetz had broken Florida's statutory rape law by paying a 17-year-old high school student for sex in 2017. The report was released Monday despite a last-ditch effort by Gaetz to block its release. We'll have more on this story later in the broadcast. We'll speak with a reporter from the Miami New Times. In other news from Congress, the family of 81-year-old Texas Republican Congressmember Kay Granger has confirmed she's experiencing dementia issues. Over the weekend, the Dallas Express revealed Granger had not voted in the House since July and that she had moved into a senior living facility. In March, she stepped down as chair of the influential House Appropriations Committee. She did not run for re-election in November. Democratic Congressmember Ro Khanna told the New York Times, quote, Kay Granger's long absence reveals the problem with a Congress that rewards seniority and relationships more than merit and ideas. We have a sclerotic gerontocracy, Congressman Khanna said. In labor news, Amazon's facing accusations it attempted to flood the picket line of striking workers in Queens, New York. On Saturday, water began gushing from an Amazon building close to where striking workers had gathered. One Amazon driver compared the flow of water from the building to a fire hydrant on full blast. In these times is reporting the Teamsters have filed a written complaint with the New York City Law Department. In other labor news, the Starbucks strike has expanded to stores in Boston, Dallas, and Portland, Oregon. As of Monday afternoon, the Starbucks strike had closed 59 Starbucks stores across the country. Naomi Martinez is a striking Starbucks worker in Burbank, California.
Starbucks workers are on strike today here in LA and the surrounding area, protesting against the outstanding unfair labor practice violations that the company has still failed to settle with our union. Additionally, our path forward that we forged with the company in February has been violated by the company for a few months now, and we will no longer accept poor bargaining and bad faith bargaining.
Missouri Governor Mike Parson is facing criticism from civil rights groups for commuting the sentence of a white police detective who was convicted of fatally shooting Cameron Lamb, a 26-year-old black man, in 2019. The detective, Eric DeVulcanaire, shot and killed Lamb, who was backing his truck into his own garage. DeVulcanaire was convicted and sentenced to 6 years in prison. Gwendolyn Grant, president and CEO of the Urban League of Greater Kansas City, said, quote, by freeing a convicted officer who unlawfully killed Cameron Lamb, a young black man, the governor has made it crystal clear that black lives do not matter in the state of Missouri under his leadership, unquote. In Atlanta, Georgia, the parents of the slain environmental activist Manuel Esteban Terán have sued 3 police officers who are involved in their death in 2023. The activist, known as Tortuguita, was shot 57 times when officers raided a protest encampment set up to fight the construction of a massive new police training center in Atlanta known as Cop City. The former head of the Washington, D.C. Police Intelligence Unit has been convicted on charges he tipped off far-right Proud Boys leader Henry Enrique Tarrio that a warrant was out for his arrest days before the January 6th insurrection. The police official, Shane Lamond, was found guilty of obstructing an investigation and making false statements to federal law enforcement officials. In Northern California, more than 500 residents have joined a class-action lawsuit in an effort to block future U.S. military aid to Israel over Gaza. The lawsuit targets Democratic Congress members Jared Huffman and Mike Thompson. The lawsuit was filed by the group Taxpayers Against Genocide. Seth Donnelly is the group's lead organizer.
We want to go to where the source is that controls our tax dollars, and that's Congress. They have power of the purse. And our two reps in the House who voted, and that's Mike Thompson for some of the counties, and the other one is Jared Huffman for the other counties. They both voted on April 20th to send $26 billion more in military aid to Israel. And by that point, it was the evidence of genocide was overwhelming.
And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, War, Peace, and the Presidency. I'm Amy Goodman. Democracy Now! Is funded by viewers like you. Please give today at democracynow.org/give.